Behind festive costumes hid chains. The bruises told the truth. Behind perfect smiles hid horror. 47 lives were saved that night.
Have you ever sat down at a Christmas dinner table and realized something was terribly, horribly wrong, but you couldn't quite figure out what? That prickling sensation on the back of your neck that tells you you're witnessing something you should never see? I had that feeling, and I was right. My Christmas dinner in 2023 was served by 8 elves dressed in glittering festive costumes, smiling as they carried trays of roasted duck and French champagne. What I didn't know that night was that those elves weren't actors. They were prisoners. My name is Daniel Kim, and I'm 17 years old. My family is Korean American, living in Bellevue, Washington, that wealthy city across from Seattle where houses cost millions and everyone drives a Tesla or Mercedes. My dad, Jin-Ho Kim, is a CEO of a tech company. My mom, Sun Mi, runs what she calls a luxury event consulting business. My older sister Grace is at Stanford studying law, and me? I'm just the middle child trying to survive senior year while my parents plan for me to get into Harvard. Bellevue in December is cold and rainy. It's not that white postcard Christmas you see in movies. It's gray, wet, and the Cascade Mountains in the background are hidden by fog most of the time. But my mom loves Christmas. Not for the religious meaning, we barely go to church, but for the aesthetics, the performance, the opportunity to show the other wealthy Korean families in Bellevue that we're the best, the most sophisticated, the most successful. Every year she hires something elaborate. Last year it was violinists dressed as angels playing classical music during dinner. Year before that was a Michelin-starred chef who prepared a 12-course meal. But this year she wanted something unique and memorable, as she put it, something no other family had done before. That's when she found the Joyeux Noël Elite Holiday Entertainment Company. I remember the name because it was written in elegant gold letters on the business card she left in the kitchen. Their website promised immersive theatrical Christmas experiences that transport your family to the North Pole. The specialty? Realistic elves who served your dinner in full character, transforming your home into a luxury Santa's workshop. "It's going to be perfect," my mom said a few weeks before Christmas, showing photos on her iPad to my dad. 8 professionally trained elves. They'll serve, clean, entertain, and look at this, they don't even break character. They stay in character all night long. How amazing is that? My dad barely looked up from his laptop. How much? $12,000. He hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. If it'll impress the Choi family when they come for dinner, it's worth it. That was always the goal. Impress, outdo, win. The Choi family, our neighbors across the street, had thrown an elaborate Thanksgiving dinner with decorations imported from France. My mom spent the entire week complaining that we'd been outdone. This Christmas would be our revenge. I didn't care much at the time. I was busy with finals, college applications, and trying to figure out how to tell my parents I didn't want to study computer science like they expected. I wanted to study investigative journalism. Hired elves seemed like just another ridiculous extravagance from my mom that I'd have to endure for a few hours while pretending to smile for photos. The morning of December 23rd started like any other winter break morning. Rain beating against the windows, my mom yelling at me to come downstairs and help prepare the house. Preparing in her case meant moving furniture to create space for a massive dining table that seated 20 people, hanging even more Christmas lights. Our house already looked like an airport when viewed from outside, and arranging decorations imported from Korea, those traditional Lunar New Year ornaments mixed with American Santas and reindeer in a weird cultural fusion that only my mom thought was elegant. "Daniel, you're wearing the hanbok I bought you." Hanbok is traditional Korean clothing. Beautiful, but uncomfortable, and definitely not what I wanted to wear while friends from school might see me through the windows. "Mom, nobody wears hanbok for Christmas." "We do. We're Korean. We should be proud of our culture."
She said this while hanging a giant Christmas stocking with Merry Christmas in glittery English. The hypocrisy never bothered her. At 5 p.m., the catering company arrived. Not the elves yet, just the food preparers. They set up a station in the kitchen and started preparing what my mom had ordered: roasted duck with pomegranate glaze, Alaskan smoked salmon, Korean herb-crusted lamb chops, gourmet kimchi, because she needed at least one authentic Korean dish, truffle mashed potatoes, and about 15 other dishes that would feed an army. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be excessive.
At 6:30, the doorbell rang. "They're here!" my mom practically squealed, rushing to the door. My dad put down his scotch and straightened his tie. I was stuck in the Hanbok, feeling ridiculous, but at least Grace wasn't home yet from her flight from California, so I wasn't the only one suffering alone. My mom opened the door, and that's when I first saw them. 8 people stood on our porch in the rain. They were dressed in elaborate elf costumes: green and red velvet with gold trim, pointed ears, curly-toed shoes with bells, and those cone-shaped hats you see in cartoons. They were smiling, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes, the kind of smile that looked painted on. "Welcome, welcome," my mom said, ushering them inside. "Oh my goodness, you all look so wonderful. Come in, you must be freezing." They filed in silently, water dripping from their costumes onto our marble floor. That's the first thing that struck me as odd. They didn't say anything. Not hello, not thank you, not nice to meet you, just silence. And those fixed smiles. There were 5 women and 3 men. Their ages ranged from what looked like early 20s to maybe mid-30s. The women were of different ethnicities. I noticed one appeared Latina, one looked Southeast Asian, maybe Filipino or Vietnamese, one was white with blonde hair, one appeared Middle Eastern, and one looked East African. The men were similarly diverse. One appeared to be South Asian, one was black, and one looked Eastern European maybe. None of them were Korean, which I noticed immediately, because in Bellevue, especially in our social circles, you see a lot of Korean and Chinese families, but this group was deliberately diverse. My mom didn't seem to notice or care about the silence. She was too busy admiring their costumes. "Aren't they magnificent, Jinho? Look at the detail on these outfits. This is exactly what I wanted: authentic North Pole aesthetics." One of the women, the Latina one with dark hair, caught my eye for a split second. She was looking at me, and I could swear I saw something in her expression. Fear? Pleading? But then she quickly looked away, her smile returning to that painted-on state. "All right, everyone," my mom said, clapping her hands together like she was addressing children. "We have 16 guests arriving in 1 hour. You know your roles. You'll be serving appetizers starting at 7:30, dinner at 8, dessert at 9:30. Remember, you stay in character the entire time. Speak in that cheerful elf voice. Use the phrases we discussed. Make this magical. Do you understand?" They all nodded in unison. Still no words. "Can they not talk?" I asked. My mom shot me a look. "Daniel, don't be rude. Of course they can talk. They're just very professional. They're getting into character." She turned back to them. "You can use the basement to store your things and take breaks. Kitchen is off limits once service starts. Any questions?" One of the men, the South Asian one, opened his mouth like he was about to speak, but then one of the women quickly touched his arm, and he closed his mouth again. The painted smile stayed fixed. Something about that interaction made my stomach turn. "Wonderful," my mom said, oblivious. "Let's get started. Guests will be arriving soon." The elves dispersed into the house, beginning their duties. They moved with practiced efficiency, setting up serving stations, arranging plates, polishing wine glasses. I watched them work, and that uncomfortable feeling in my gut grew stronger. At 7:15, Grace finally arrived home from the airport, dragging her suitcase and looking exhausted. "I hate holiday travel," she muttered, then saw me in the hanbok. "Oh my God, she made you wear that thing? I'm so glad I brought my own dress." She disappeared upstairs to change. By 7:30, our house was full. The Choi family, the Park family, the Lee family, my dad's business partners and their families, all dressed in their expensive holiday best, speaking a mix of Korean and English, drinking wine, admiring our decorations, and the elves were performing perfectly.
They moved through the crowd carrying trays of appetizers, smoked salmon on crackers, Korean beef skewers, stuffed mushrooms, tiny quiches. They spoke in high-pitched, cheerful voices, "Merry Christmas from the North Pole," and "Santa's workshop sends holiday cheer." The guests loved it. They took photos, they laughed, they praised my mom for her creativity. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Dinner was announced at 8 p.m. sharp. We all moved to the massive dining table my mom had set up. It looked like something out of a magazine. White linens, gold-rimmed plates, crystal glasses, candles everywhere, fresh pine branches as centerpieces, mixed with traditional Korean Lucky Charms. The elves began bringing out the food, course after course, each dish more elaborate than the last. I sat between Grace and one of my dad's business partners, a man named Wang, who spent the entire meal talking about his son getting into Yale. I nodded and smiled and pushed food around my plate, but I kept watching the elves. That's when I noticed her. The Latina woman, the one who'd caught my eye earlier. She was serving wine to the table, moving between guests, pouring carefully. When she got to our side of the table, she leaned over to fill my glass, and that's when I saw it. Her sleeve rode up slightly as she tilted the bottle, and there, on her wrist, were bruises. Dark purple bruises that looked fresh, like someone had grabbed her hard. But there was something else. Around her ankle, barely visible beneath the curly elf shoes, was what looked like a gold chain. Not jewelry, an actual chain. She'd painted it gold, but I could see where the paint was chipping, revealing dark metal underneath. My breath caught. I looked up at her face. She was still smiling that painted smile, but when our eyes met, I saw it again. That flash of desperation, of pleading. And this time, she very slightly shook her head. Just a tiny movement. A warning. Don't say anything. My heart started racing. I looked around the table. Nobody else had noticed. They were all too busy eating, drinking, laughing, talking about their successful children and their expensive cars and their vacation homes. Grace was taking selfies with her wine glass. My mom was describing the menu to Mrs. Choi in elaborate detail. My dad was discussing tech investments with Mr. Park. And these elves, these people in costumes, with bruises and chains hidden under gold paint, were serving them food. I felt sick. The woman moved on to the next guest, her smile never faltering. I watched as she returned to the kitchen, and I saw the other elves. Now that I was looking, really looking, I saw things I'd missed before. The Eastern European man had a split lip that he'd tried to cover with makeup. The Filipino woman was limping slightly. The black man had a scar on his neck that looked recent, and none of them, not a single one, ever stopped smiling. "Daniel, are you okay?" Grace asked, noticing I'd gone pale. "You look like you're going to throw up." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just ate too fast." But I wasn't fine. I was realizing something horrible. Something that made me want to scream at everyone at this table to stop eating, stop laughing, stop pretending everything was perfect. These weren't actors. These weren't professional entertainers. These were people being held against their will. And my parents had paid $12,000 for this. I needed proof. I needed evidence. Because if I said something now without proof, my mom would just deny it. They'd call the company, they'd say everything was fine, and these people would disappear. And something told me that if they disappeared, I'd never see them again. Nobody would. I excused myself from the table, saying I needed the bathroom. Instead, I went upstairs to my room and grabbed my phone. It was an iPhone 14, best camera my parents' money could buy. I tucked it in my pocket and headed back downstairs, but instead of returning to dinner, I slipped toward the kitchen. The catering staff had left hours ago. Now it was just the elves. They were in the kitchen, preparing the next course, some kind of elaborate dessert. They moved quickly, efficiently, silently. When I appeared in the doorway, they all froze. "Hey," I said softly, trying not to startle them. "I just wanted to, thank you guys for the great service. You're doing an amazing job." They stared at me, that same painted smile, that same silence. "Are you guys okay?" I asked quietly. "Do you need help?" The Latina woman stepped forward slightly. She glanced at the doorway behind me, making sure nobody was coming. Then she looked directly at me, and very slowly, very carefully, She mouthed 2 words. Help us.
Before I could respond, we heard footsteps. My mom's voice. Daniel, where did you go? The woman immediately stepped back, her smile returning to full brightness. The other elves resumed their dessert preparation as if nothing had happened. When my mom appeared in the doorway, everything looked perfectly normal. What are you doing in here? She asked, annoyed. Guests are waiting for dessert. Get back to the table. Sorry, I was just checking if they needed any help, I said. They're professionals. They don't need your help. Go. I went back to the table, but my mind was racing. I had confirmation now. They needed help. They were trapped. But I still needed proof, evidence that would be undeniable. Dessert was served, some elaborate chocolate creation that probably cost more than most people's weekly groceries. Everyone oohed and awed. The elves served it with their cheerful North Pole commentary, and I sat there, planning. At 9:45, my mom announced it was time for the Christmas toast. Everyone stood, champagne glasses raised. My dad started his speech about gratitude and success and family and prosperity, the usual corporate father speech. That's when I saw my opportunity. The elves were lined up against the wall, waiting to clear dessert plates. The Latina woman was closest to me. While everyone was distracted by my dad's speech, I very carefully pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and angled it toward her. I zoomed in on her ankle where that gold-painted chain was visible. Then I shifted to her wrist, capturing the bruises. Then I moved to the Eastern European man's split lip, the Filipino woman's limp. I was subtle, keeping the phone low, pretending to check messages. I got about 30 seconds of footage before I had to put it away, but it was enough. You could see the injuries, you could see the chain, you could see the fear in their eyes, despite the smiles. The toast ended. Everyone clinked glasses and drank. The elves began clearing plates. Guests started saying their goodbyes. It was nearly 10 p.m., and people had early Christmas Eve plans the next day. As families filed out, thanking my mom for the most magical Christmas dinner ever, I pulled Grace aside. I need to show you something, I whispered. Can it wait? I'm exhausted. No, it can't wait. We went to my room. I locked the door and showed her the video. Her face went from confusion to horror in about 10 seconds. Oh my God, Daniel, this is human trafficking. This is actual human trafficking. I know. We have to call the police right now. And tell them what? That my mom hired entertainers and I think they're being held against their will? She'll deny it. The company will deny it. These people will disappear and we'll never find them again. We need more than just this video. Grace thought for a moment. The basement. Mom said they could use the basement for breaks. Maybe there's something down there. Papers, contracts, something that proves what's really happening. Everyone's still here. Mom and Dad are saying goodbye to guests. The elves are cleaning. This is our chance. We crept downstairs. The main floor was still busy with departing guests and my parents playing the perfect hosts. Grace and I slipped past them to the basement door. It's the only part of our house that's not renovated and fancy. It's just concrete walls and storage boxes, which is why my mom never shows it to anyone. We opened the door quietly and went down the stairs. The basement was dimly lit by a single bulb. And that's when we saw it. In the corner were 8 backpacks, personal belongings. We opened them one by one. What we found made my blood run cold. Passports, all confiscated, all from different countries. Mexico, Philippines, Ethiopia, Syria, India, Ukraine, Romania, Eritrea. The elves' real names and faces, citizenship documents. But also something else. Contracts, but not employment contracts. Ownership papers. Papers that listed these people as property of the Joyeux Noël Elite Holiday Entertainment Company. Papers that detailed their acquisition costs, amounts paid to traffickers who'd smuggled them into the U.S. Papers that listed them by number, not name. Property 17, Property 23, Property 31. There were medical records too, showing sedatives they'd been given, injuries they'd sustained, signs of malnutrition. And then Grace found the worst thing. A schedule. A calendar showing their assignments. Our house was just one stop.
Yesterday they'd worked at another mansion in Medina. Tomorrow they were scheduled for a house in Sammamish. Next week, Portland. These people were being moved around Washington and Oregon, working elite holiday parties, being rented out like equipment. And at the bottom of the schedule was the payment breakdown. The families hosting paid between $12,000 and $15,000 per event. The Elves received nothing. It all went to the company, which, according to incorporation papers we found, was owned by multiple silent partners across the country. Grace was taking photos of everything with her phone. I was shaking. This was so much worse than I had imagined. "We need to call 911 right now," Grace said, her voice trembling despite the tears streaming down her face. "Wait," I said. "There's something else." I'd found another folder. This one had financial records, bank transfers, names of clients who had used the service, and I recognized some of them, other wealthy families in Bellevue, business associates of my dad. But there was something else. One name appeared over and over in the ownership documents. One name linked to dozens of transactions. One name listed as primary coordinator and regional manager. Sun Mi Kim. My mother. "No," Grace whispered, reading over my shoulder. No. Daniel, this has to be a mistake. Mom wouldn't..." But there it was. Bank statements showing money flowing into her consulting business. Emails discussing acquisitions and property transfers. Communication with traffickers in Southeast Asia, Central America, and Africa. She wasn't just a client. She was the business. At least in the Pacific Northwest region. The Joyeux Noël Elite Holiday Entertainment Company was a front. And my mother was running it. I felt like I was going to vomit. My whole body was shaking. This woman who'd raised me, who'd made me wear hanbok to show Korean pride, who'd driven me to piano lessons and soccer practice and debate tournaments, was trafficking human beings. "We're calling the police," Grace said, her voice firm despite the tears streaming down her face. "Right now. I don't care what happens to Mom. This is evil. This is actual evil." I nodded, unable to speak. That's when we heard footsteps at the top of the basement stairs.
The door at the top of the basement stairs opened slowly. Light from the main floor spilled down. Grace and I froze, our hands still on the documents we'd been photographing. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. "Daniel? Grace?" It was my mom's voice. "What are you two doing down there?" For a split second, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. We'd been caught. She knew. She knew we'd found everything. But then, Grace did something I'll never forget. She grabbed my phone, deleted the photos she'd just taken, and whispered urgently, "Follow my lead." Then, she called up the stairs, her voice perfectly steady, perfectly casual. "Sorry, Mom. I asked Daniel to help me find my old yearbooks. I wanted to show some photos to friends at Stanford. We got distracted looking through old stuff." There was a pause, then, "Well, come up here. We need to say goodbye to the last guests." "Be right there," Grace called back cheerfully. The door closed. We heard footsteps retreating. Grace immediately grabbed my phone again. "Tell me you uploaded those videos to the cloud." "Yeah, they auto-sync to iCloud." "Good, because we need to get out of this house, right now, with these documents." She started shoving papers into her purse, the ownership documents, the schedules, the medical records, anything we could carry. I grabbed my backpack and filled it with the rest, the passports, the contracts, everything. "She's going to notice these are missing," I whispered. "I don't care. We're not leaving them here. If she destroys evidence, those people are dead." We climbed the stairs as quietly as possible. The main floor was almost empty now, just my parents and one lingering couple saying prolonged goodbyes at the door. The Elves were in the kitchen, cleaning. We could see them through the doorway, moving silently, efficiently. Grace grabbed my arm. "We can't just walk out the front door with backpacks full of evidence. Mom will stop us." "Then what?" "The garage, my car. We put the stuff in my trunk, then we come back inside and act normal until we can leave." We slipped through the house to the garage entrance. Grace's car, a silver Lexus our parents bought her for getting into Stanford, was parked beside my dad's Mercedes and my mom's BMW. We opened the trunk as quietly as possible and shoved our bags inside. That's when the garage door to the house opened. It was one of the Elves, the South Asian man. He'd come out to take garbage to the bins. When he saw us, he froze. We stared at each other for a long, terrible moment. Then he whispered in barely accented English, "You found something, didn't you?" I nodded slowly. "Are you going to help us?" His voice cracked. "Please, I have a daughter. I haven't seen her in 3 years. They took me from Delhi, promised me restaurant work, green card, American dream. Instead," he gestured at his elf costume at the kitchen visible through the window where the others were cleaning. "We're calling the police," Grace whispered. "Right now, tonight, I promise you." "No." His eyes went wide with fear. "No police. Not yet. She has people. Your mother, she has people inside police, inside border patrol, inside immigration. If you call wrong people, they warn her. We disappear. Always happens. 3 people tried to escape before. They disappeared. We never see them again." My blood ran cold. "Then who do we call?" "FBI, Human Trafficking Task Force. I hear them talk about it. They afraid of FBI. But you need evidence. Real evidence. Not just papers. You need video. You need her on video saying it, confessing, or they deny everything, and we still disappear. How do we get that?"
He thought for a moment. "Tomorrow, Christmas Eve. She having meeting here, with her partners. They always meet day after big event to discuss inventory and bookings. I hear her schedule it. 2 p.m. after we finish cleaning this house. If you record that meeting." He trailed off, hope and desperation warring in his expression. "We'll do it," I said. "I swear to you, we'll do it." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "My name is Arjun. Arjun Patel. If something happens to me, if I disappear, please tell my daughter I tried. She lives in Delhi. Her name is Priya. Tell her Papa tried to come home." "Nothing's going to happen to you," Grace said firmly, "because we're ending this tomorrow." Arjun slipped back into the house. Grace and I stood in the garage, shaking. "We have to go back inside," Grace said. "Act normal. Go to sleep. And tomorrow we record that meeting. And then? And then we call the FBI, and we burn this whole thing down." We went back into the house. My mom was in the kitchen overseeing the final cleanup. The elves were packing up their equipment, their painted smiles still fixed in place. "There you two are," Mom said. "Grace, are you staying the night or driving back to your apartment?" "Staying," Grace said smoothly. "My flight back to Stanford is until the 26th. Figured I'd spend Christmas with family." Mom smiled. "Perfect. Daniel, it's late. Go to bed. Big day tomorrow. We're doing Christmas Eve dinner with just our family. Something small and intimate." I nodded, said goodnight, and went upstairs. But I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept thinking about Arjun, about his daughter Priya, about 8 people downstairs who were prisoners in my house, being paid to smile while my family celebrated. Around 2 a.m., I heard vehicles pulling up outside. I looked out my window and saw a white van with the Joyeux Noël company logo. The elves filed out of our house and into the van. The driver was a large white man, muscled, with neck tattoos visible even from my window. Security. Or a prison guard, really. They drove away into the rainy Seattle night, taking those 8 people to whatever holding location they kept them at, between gigs. I finally fell asleep around 4 a.m., exhausted and terrified. Christmas Eve morning was surreal. My parents acted like everything was normal. My dad made his specialty kimchi pancakes for breakfast. My mom was on her phone constantly, texting, checking her calendar, managing her business. Grace and I exchanged looks across the table, but said nothing. "So, what time is your consulting meeting this afternoon?" my dad asked casually, pouring more coffee. 2:00. Should be quick, just year-end review with the regional partners, discussing expansion plans for next year. Expansion? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. You mean more events? Exactly. We're expanding to California, San Francisco, LA, San Diego. Lots of wealthy families there looking for unique entertainment experiences, and the demand for authentic, immersive experiences is growing. This could become a national franchise. She said it so casually, like she was discussing a legitimate business, expanding human trafficking operations to California like it was opening new Starbucks locations. "Who's coming to the meeting?" Grace asked. Mom rattled off names, but they were clearly fake. Susan from Portland, Michael from Eugene, Patricia from Boise, just the regional managers. "Sounds important," I said. "Maybe we should go to the movies or something, give you privacy." "No need," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "The meeting's in my office. You two won't even know we're here. Just don't interrupt, okay?" Perfect. After breakfast, Grace and I went to my room. We spent the next 2 hours planning. My room was directly above my mom's home office. If we could get audio equipment in there, we could record everything. I have a recording device for law school lectures. It's small, it's good quality, and it has a 6-hour battery. If we can plant it in her office. During lunch, I said. She always takes lunch in the kitchen. We'll have maybe 10 minutes. At noon, my mom started preparing lunch. Leftover duck from last night plus some Korean banchan side dishes. While she was in the kitchen with my dad, Grace and I slipped into her office. It was a pristine space. White desk, white walls, expensive artwork, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with business books she'd probably never read. Her computer was locked, but that didn't matter. We weren't here for digital evidence.
Grace pulled out her recording device, a small black rectangle about the size of a key fob. She pressed record and tucked it behind a stack of books on the shelf, positioned toward the desk where the meeting would take place. We were back upstairs in less than 5 minutes. At 1:50 p.m., the doorbell started ringing. Grace and I watched from my bedroom window as 3 people arrived. Not Susan, Michael, and Patricia. 3 very real, very nervous-looking people. A middle-aged white woman in expensive athletic wear, a middle-aged Korean man in a business suit, and a younger white man, maybe early 30s, with the build of someone who'd done time in prison. They disappeared into the house. We heard muffled greetings downstairs, then footsteps heading to Mom's office. The door closed. Grace checked her phone. The recording device app showed it was actively recording. We couldn't hear what they were saying from upstairs, but the device would catch everything. For the next hour and 45 minutes, we waited. It was the longest 2 hours of my life. We sat in my room, not talking, just listening to the rain outside and occasionally checking the recording app to make sure it was still working. Finally, at 3:45 p.m., we heard the office door open. Voices in the hallway, goodbyes being said, car doors, engines starting. They were leaving. We waited another 10 minutes to make sure the coast was clear. Then Grace said, "I'm going to go get the recorder. You stay here and be lookout. If Mom comes upstairs, text me immediately." She slipped out of my room. I stood at the door, heart racing, watching the stairs. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2 minutes. Then Grace reappeared, the recorder in her hand, eyes wide. We rushed back to my room and locked the door. Grace plugged the recorder into her laptop and transferred the audio file. Then we hit play. What we heard made me physically ill. My mother's voice, clear and unmistakable. "All right, let's review fourth quarter numbers. Portland region?" The white woman.
43 bookings, average $18,000 per booking, total revenue $774,000. Expenses for housing, feeding, and transporting the inventory were approximately $60,000. Net profit $714,000. She was calling them inventory. My mom, good numbers. Any losses? The white woman, 2. Number 47 tried to escape in November, had to be eliminated. Number 51 became too injured to work, had to be disposed of. Eliminated. Disposed of. They were talking about murdering people. The Korean man spoke next. Eugene region, 31 bookings, similar profit margins, but we're running low on fresh inventory. Demand is higher than supply. We need new acquisitions. My mom, I'm working on that. We have contacts in Guatemala, bringing up a group in January. 10 workers, diverse demographics, already broken in. Cost is $200,000 for the group, should net us back that in 3 months, easy. Grace was crying silently next to me. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The younger man, what about the California expansion? My mom, we're ready. I've secured 3 storage facilities, 1 in San Francisco, 1 outside LA, 1 in San Diego. We'll move 10 workers to each location. Patricia, you're taking San Francisco. Michael, you're taking LA. I'll handle San Diego personally until we find someone reliable. They discussed logistics like military operations, where to source inventory, how to transport them without detection, which border crossings were easiest, which corrupt officials they had in their pockets, how to identify wealthy families who would pay premium prices and keep quiet.
And then my mom said something that made my blood freeze. One more thing. My son and daughter were in the basement last night. Went down there unsupervised for about 15 minutes. I checked this morning. Some documents are missing. Not the important stuff, but enough to make me nervous. Silence on the recording. Then the younger man. You want me to handle it? No, my mom said quickly. They're my kids, but I need to know what they found, what they know. Patricia, you're good at this. Can you talk to them? Friendly. Just feeling them out. If they know anything, we'll deal with it accordingly. Deal with it accordingly. She was talking about us, her own children. Grace stopped the recording. We sat in silence for a long moment. Grace finally said, her voice shaking but determined, "We need to leave, right now. We get in my car, we drive straight to the FBI field office in Seattle, and we don't come back until this is over." I nodded. We grabbed our laptops, our phones, copies of the documents we'd hidden in Grace's trunk. We went downstairs as quietly as possible. My mom was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Christmas Eve dinner. For her family, while planning how to deal with her children if we knew too much. "Hey, Mom," Grace called out, trying to sound casual. "Daniel and I are going to run to the store. Need anything?" Mom looked up, and for just a split second, I saw something in her eyes. Suspicion. Calculation. Then the warm smile returned. "Actually, yes. Can you grab some milk? We're out." "Sure. Be back soon." We walked to the garage, fighting every instinct to run. Got in Grace's car. She started the engine. The garage door opened, and then I saw it. Parked across the end of our driveway, blocking us in, was the white van, the Joya's Noel company van, and standing beside it was the muscle driver with neck tattoos. "Go, go, go, go!" I shouted. Grace threw the car in reverse, trying to back into the garage so we could run into the house, but it was too late. The side door of the house opened, and my mother stepped out, holding her phone. Behind her was Patricia, the white woman from the meeting, and she was holding something. A gun. Small. Black. Professional. "Turn off the car, Grace. Both of you, get out. Let's talk inside like a family." "Mom, please," Grace said, her voice breaking. "You don't have to do this." "Get out of the car." We had no choice. The driver was at Grace's door, opening it, pulling her out. Patricia came to my side and did the same. They herded us back into the house like cattle. Inside, my dad was sitting at the kitchen table, his face ashen.
He looked at us, and I saw tears in his eyes. "Kids, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know." "Oh, shut up, Jin-ho," my mom snapped. "You knew enough. You saw the bank statements. You never asked questions because you liked the money." She turned to Grace and I. "Sit down, both of you." We sat. Patricia stood behind us with the gun. The driver stayed at the door, blocking any exit. My mom pulled out a chair and sat across from us. She looked tired and somehow disappointed, like we were children who'd broken her favorite vase instead of discovered her human trafficking operation. "I gave you everything," she said quietly. "Everything. Private schools, music lessons, European vacations, cars, college funds. You never wanted for anything. All I asked was that you stay out of my business, that you let me provide for this family the way I knew how. But you couldn't do that, could you? You're enslaving people, Mom. You're buying and selling human beings. You're murdering them when they become inconvenient." "I'm running a business," she countered. "A very profitable business that keeps this family in the lifestyle you've become accustomed to. You think your father's tech salary pays for all this?" She gestured around our mansion. "We are over-leveraged. The mortgage on this house alone is $28,000 a month. Your sister's tuition at Stanford is $90,000 a year. Your private school, Daniel, is $45,000. This life isn't cheap." "So you bought people," Grace said, disgusted. "To work for free so you could make money." "I provided opportunities. These people were in terrible situations in their home countries. War, poverty, violence. I gave them a chance to come to America." "You imprisoned them," I shouted. "You chained them. You drugged them. You murder them." Her face went cold. "Where are the documents you took from the basement?" Neither of us answered. Patricia pressed the gun against the back of Grace's head. "The documents. Now." "In my trunk," Grace whispered. "In my car." Mom nodded at the driver, who left to retrieve them. When he returned with our bags, Mom went through everything methodically. The documents, the passports, everything we'd stolen. She separated them into 2 piles, one to keep, one to destroy. Then she picked up Grace's laptop. "Password?" "No." Patricia cocked the gun.
"Grace Lee 2026, Grace said quickly. Mom opened the laptop, searched through files, and found the audio recording. She listened to about 30 seconds, then closed the laptop. Well, that's problematic. She looked at Patricia and the driver. "Take them to the facility. Keep them with the others until we figure out what to do." "Mom, please," I started. "You should have minded your own business, Daniel. I tried to raise you with respect for elders, for family loyalty. This is what happens when children defy their parents." They forced us to our feet. Patricia kept the gun trained on us while the driver zip-tied our hands behind our backs. My dad just sat there crying, useless. They were walking us toward the door when Grace did something crazy and brilliant. She had been wearing her Apple Watch. The whole time we'd been sitting there, she had been secretly activating Siri, asking it to call 911. She had positioned her wrist against the back of the chair so Mom and the others couldn't see the screen light up. Just as they were pushing us out the door, a voice came from Grace's watch, calling 911. Everyone froze. Then my mom lunged for Grace, trying to grab the watch, but Grace twisted away. A female voice came through the watch speaker. 911, what's your emergency?" "We're being held hostage," Grace screamed. 4785 Bellevue Avenue, Bellevue, Washington. They have guns, human trafficking. Help us." Patricia moved to shoot the watch, but Grace kept twisting and the bullet missed, shattering a window instead. The sound was deafening. "Shots fired," the 911 operator's voice came through. "Units are responding. Stay on the line." My mom made a split-second decision. "Patricia and Raymond, get them in the van, now. We moved before police arrive." But it was too late. We heard sirens already. Multiple sirens, getting closer. In the chaos of the next 60 seconds, everything happened at once.
Raymond, the driver, tried to drag me toward the van, but I fought him, kicking and screaming. Patricia was trying to get Grace, but Grace was fighting too, and the gun went off again, this time hitting the ceiling. My dad suddenly came to life, grabbing a kitchen knife and stabbing Raymond in the shoulder. The man roared in pain and dropped me. Police cars screeched into our driveway, blocking the van. Lights everywhere, shouting, "Police! Drop your weapons! Hands where we can see them!" Patricia made the mistake of raising her gun toward the officers. 4 shots rang out simultaneously. She went down. My mom tried to run toward the back of the house, but officers were coming in from all sides. They tackled her to the ground, zip-tied her hands, just like she had done to us. Within 3 minutes, it was over. 6 police cars, an ambulance, officers everywhere. They cut the zip ties off our wrists. A female officer wrapped a blanket around Grace and me. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "No," I managed. "But there are others. 8 people. They're being held somewhere. A facility. We don't know where." "We'll find them," the officer promised. "Tell us everything." We told them. Everything. The Christmas dinner, the elves, what we'd found in the basement, the meeting we recorded, the confession of murder and trafficking. More units arrived. FBI, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, a whole task force we didn't even know existed. Apparently, they'd been investigating Joyous Noel for months, but hadn't had enough evidence to move. Until now. Grace's audio recording was the smoking gun they needed. Combined with the documents we'd found and our testimony, they had everything. Within 6 hours, they'd raided 3 facilities across Washington and Oregon. They found 47 people in prison there, the 8 from our house, 39 others, different nationalities, different stories, all trafficked. Some had been held for years. Arjun was among them. When the FBI brought him out of the facility in Tacoma, I was there. He saw me and Grace standing with the agents, and he broke down crying. "You did it. You saved us. You actually did it. You're going home to Priya, I promise. We'll make sure of it." And we did. The FBI connected us with organizations that help trafficking victims. Arjun and the others were giving temporary visas while their cases were processed. Within 8 months, Arjun was back in Delhi, reunited with his daughter, Priya. He sends Grace and me photos sometimes. Priya is 13 now, smiling, healthy, happy. Her papa came home. My mother was charged with over 60 counts. Human trafficking, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and about 40 other charges. The trial lasted 4 months. Grace and I both testified. So did Arjun. So did all 47 survivors. The evidence was overwhelming. My mother was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Patricia got 35. Raymond got 25. The others received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years. My dad cooperated with investigators. He hadn't known the full extent of what Mom was doing, but he'd known enough to be complicit. He was sentenced to 5 years, but served only 2 with good behavior. He's out now. We don't talk much. Grace won't talk to him at all. The marriage ended, obviously. Divorce was finalized before Mom's sentencing. Our house was seized as proceeds of crime. Everything in it. We lost it all. Grace had to take loans to finish Stanford. I'm finishing high school at public school now, living with Grace in a small apartment near UW. And you know what? I don't miss any of it. Not the mansion, not the cars, not the expensive clothes or private school or any of that wealth built on human suffering. The Joyous Noel elite holiday entertainment company was completely dismantled. Federal investigation revealed it had operated in 12 states, trafficked over 300 people over a 6-year period, and generated over $40 million in revenue. All of it built on slavery. Today is December 23rd, 2025, exactly 2 years from that Christmas dinner. Grace and I both work with the Human Trafficking Task Force now. I'm still in high school, but I volunteer on weekends, helping connect survivors with resources. Grace graduated Stanford early and is in law school at Georgetown, specializing in human trafficking prosecution. We spend Christmas differently now, quietly, with survivors we've helped, with the families that have been reunited, with people who understand that the holidays aren't about performance or wealth or impressing the neighbors. They're about humanity, about seeing people as people, about recognizing when something is deeply wrong and having the courage to act. So if you're watching this and something in your life feels off, if you see someone who needs help but everyone else is looking away, don't ignore it. Don't tell yourself it's not your business. Don't convince yourself that surely someone else will handle it. Because maybe they won't. Maybe you're the only one who noticed. Maybe you're the only one who can help. I was 17 years old at a Christmas dinner when I noticed bruises on a woman's wrist and a painted chain on her ankle. I could have looked away. I could have eaten my duck and drunk my champagne and enjoyed the performance. But I didn't. And because I didn't, 47 people are free today. 47 people got to go home. 47 people got their lives back. That's what I want you to take from this. Not that people do terrible things, you already know that. Not that evil exists, you already know that too. But that one person can make a difference. That teenagers can bring down trafficking rings. That paying attention and acting on what you see can save lives. So pay attention. Look for the signs. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. And when you see someone who needs help, be the person who helps them. Because I promise, they're waiting for someone to notice, someone to care, someone to act. Be that someone. Merry Christmas, and remember, the best gift you can give isn't wrapped in paper and tied in ribbon. It's freedom.